Our third speaker is Michael Cutler. Upon graduating from Brooklyn College, Mr. Cutler began a 30-year career with the Immigration and Naturalization Service. He brings to the table a street-savvy cop's anger that our immigration laws are not obeyed.
Immigration can be an effective mechanism, can offer an effective screening mechanism to help us to protect our country. On September 11, 2001, when the towers were attacked, I live in New York City. The ashes landed on me and my family, and among those ashes were the remains of my neighbors. I work as a volunteer with the 9/11 Families for a Secure America. I've arrested other terrorists in my career. I arrested a suspected IRA terrorist, South American terrorists. These folks are serious. We're not. I've made the point that a country without secure borders can no more stand than a house without walls. And I know that I've been on a lot of television programs. I've been on with Lou Dobbs many times, and he does a great job of getting the issue out there. But when Lou talks about broken borders, it's not just our physical borders, such as the ones that exist that separate or are supposed to separate the United States from Mexico and Canada. Borders also exist at any ports of entry, including airports. You could say that any state that has an international airport is also a border state. It's estimated that 40% of the illegal aliens in the United States did not run our land borders, but rather entered through ports of entry, such as airports, as did the 19 terrorists. Incredibly, you wonder how we can be told we're waging a war on terror when we still have a visa waiver program for 27 countries. Great Britain harbors terrorists. Spain harbors terrorists. This isn't a slander against those close allies of the United States. It's a statement of fact. Israel is one of our closest allies. They know they've got problems with terrorists within their borders, except they don't participate in the visa waiver program, but Great Britain and Germany and Spain and Italy and others do. So when we go to airports today, we as American citizens take off our shoes because we know that Richard Reed was a shoe bomber. Richard Reed was concealing explosives in his shoes that he had planned to detonate on an airplane that was over the Atlantic Ocean had it not been for some quick-thinking passengers who stopped him. The amazing thing is that Richard Reed was able to get on that airplane without a visa because his country, Great Britain, participates in the visa waiver program. So we've learned the lesson that you can hide bombs in your shoes, but the issue of the visa program continues unabated. When I've spoken to friends on both sides of the political aisle here in Washington, I've been told that the reason that the visa waiver program is alive and well is because corporations, especially the corporations involved in travel and hospitality, don't want visas because they're concerned it might cut into their profits. Ladies and gentlemen, we are allowing corporations to make national security decisions for the United States. And I want you to understand just how dangerous the situation is right now. What Chris had to say and what the congressman had to say were perfectly on message. But I also want you to realize something else. There's a lot of talk about background checks. A background check should never, ever be confused with a background investigation. I had a top-secret clearance as an agent. I spent half my career, in fact, doing drug and terrorism investigations. I was assigned to the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. I spent 4 years assigned to the Unified Intelligence Division at DEA in New York. And I had a top-secret clearance, which took months for the government to process. They would go out, knock on doors, show my photograph, say to people, do you know this guy? How do you know him? How long do you know him? What kind of guy is he? And so forth. Here we're talking about a check. If I knew my name was probably on a terror watch list, there's absolutely nothing that would prevent me from walking into an immigration office, knowing full well that I was careful to not get fingerprinted, so my fingerprints come up clean, and saying that my name is Donald Duck. So what they would do under this mandate is run the fingerprints come back no record, they run Donald Duck. Well, of course, it's no record because it's a fictitious name, and within 24 hours, they would issue me a temporary document that would enable me to get a driver's license and a Social Security card and embed myself in a community and wait for a phone call or a message or whatever. Somebody once said that a spy, an effective spy, is somebody who would not attract the attention of a waitress in a greasy spoon diner. You could say the same thing about a terrorist, and in fact, it might be the waiter or waitress who is the terrorist or the spy. In fact, one day we arrested a dishwasher in a Staten Island diner. He ran like the wind. He was a citizen of Egypt. We took him back to his apartment. When we got there looking for his passport, we found shopping bags filled to the brim with coupons. It turned out he was doing coupon fraud. This was in the 80s. Nobody had alerted us to this. We deported the guy, and months later I realized why he had those coupons. The guy working as a dishwasher in a diner in Staten Island, hiding in plain sight, was involved with terrorism. the amazing thing is that the president makes statements that absolutely make no sense. He said that if we allow people in who simply want to work, then law enforcement can deal with the terrorists. If you look at every single incident where somebody has been arrested as a terrorist suspect, I defy you to tell me the last time you heard that he was dug out of a hole in the ground or out of somebody's attic. Every single one of these terrorist suspects were identified as working at some kind of a job, usually a job that provides them with the ability to have camouflage and mobility. A good example was a bus driver who was arrested in Toronto driving a school bus. It gave him mobility, it gave him camouflage, and it gave him access to teenage boys who he was able to recruit for a terror cell that he was putting together when he was arrested. We had a guy arrested here in the United States in Lodi, California, driving an ice cream truck. I've done surveillance. I have followed people around for weeks. When some guy gets into a car, drives for a half hour, gets out of his car, walks up to another guy, and they shake hands, you know he's had a meeting. How many people walk up to that ice cream truck? How many people get in the back of that taxi cab? The bottom line is if we don't know who you are a threat to our safety. When you go to a store to make a purchase with a personal check, they want to see photo ID because you could be anybody you claim to be. How do they know who you are? That's just to make a purchase. The President of the United States and Ted Kennedy, it's both sides of the aisle, folks. I happen to be a registered Democrat, and I want to make that point because this is neither a conservative nor a Republican issue, seem to think that this is acceptable to give away the keys to the kingdom to people whose identities can't be proven. And when they say that we need to do this because then we'll finally get things squared away, I don't want to take up too much more time, but I want to make a point that's important. If you look at the amnesty of '86, we went to theoretically 0 illegal aliens. Ted Kennedy promised us that this would be a one-time deal, that it would involve 1.1 million illegal aliens. We wound up with nearly 4 million illegal aliens, and we went to 0 illegals after that, in theory, and we now have the greatest number of illegal aliens in the history of our country. How is it that in 20 years we went from 0 to 12, 20, 25 million, who knows by now? The answer is, number one, there's no door we can close. Number two, there's no effort being made to weed out people who are here illegally. And by the way, by not arresting people for immigration violations the way we need to, we miss opportunities to cultivate informants. One of the greatest ways of cultivating informants is to arrest people who commit serious crimes and then offer them a way out, become a cooperator. They become our eyes and ears. We would lose that ability, by the way, with this law because we'd no longer be arresting people, so what carrot, what stick are you going to offer people? You're giving them the candy store anyway. We are selling our country. We are selling national security. We are endangering our safety. Last year, the incompetent and corrupt USCIS claims that they lost 111,000 immigration files relating to aliens seeking a wide variety of immigration benefits. Among those aliens were 30,000 seeking U.S. citizenship. They went ahead and adjudicated their applications blindly without their files. This is the same agency that would be put in charge. There's only about 4,000 ICE agents that could be pressed into service who handle immigration issues. There's about 5,500 altogether if you include the other guys who are working customs. So how are we going to have a system with integrity? This is an invitation for terrorists to come to the United States, hide in plain sight, wait for the instructions to kill many more Americans. 9/11, we lost 3,000 people. I stay awake often, wondering, fearful of what might come next if we're not careful. Thank you for your time.